Captain Nora Hayes stared through the reinforced windows of Research Station Helios 7, watching the crimson solar storm paint the sky in shades of blood and fire. The magnetic interference had already knocked out most of their long-range communications, leaving the station's skeleton crew of 3 isolated on the edge of settled space. Perfect timing for everything to go wrong. Another surge incoming, Lieutenant Marcus Rhodes called from his station, dark fingers dancing across holographic displays. Shields holding at 68%. Nora nodded, unconsciously touching the captain's bars on her collar. At 32, she was young for her rank, but 6 years of exemplary service in the Frontier Defense Force had earned her this post, even if this post happened to be babysitting a classified research facility in the middle of nowhere. The station shuddered as another wave of stellar radiation washed over them. Something sparked in the ceiling, sending a shower of sparks across the command center. "Status report," Nora barked, already moving toward the environmental controls. "We've lost auxiliary power to sectors 3 through 5, Dr. Jun Park reported, his usually calm voice tight with tension. The aging scientist had been stationed here longer than anyone, overseeing research Nora wasn't cleared to know about. "The containment fields." A proximity alarm cut through his words, its shrill cry echoing through the station. Nora's head snapped toward the main display, where a small craft had appeared, tumbling through the storm toward them. "Unknown vessel," Marcus announced, fingers flying across his console. "No identifying markers, wait life signs, one occupant faint biosignature." Nora frowned. They were light years from the nearest outpost. No one should be out here, especially during a solar storm. Hail them. No response. Their systems appear to be failing. They're going to drift into the radiation belt if we don't. "Prep docking bay 2, Nora interrupted, already heading for the lift. "Jun, get medical ready. Marcus, you're with me." The small craft looked like it had been through hell, its hull scorched and pitted. As the docking clamps secured it, Nora and Marcus approached in radiation suits, weapons ready. Standard procedure, even if it felt excessive for a single survivor. The airlock cycled, and they found her curled in the pilot's seat, unconscious but alive. Her skin was pale lavender, marked with silvery patterns that seemed to shift in the emergency lighting. An ascendant. Nora had never seen one in person before. "She's freezing," Marcus muttered, checking vital signs. "But stable, no obvious injuries." They carried her to medical, where Jun was waiting. The alien woman stirred as they laid her on the examination table, eyes fluttering open to reveal irises like liquid mercury. She looked confused, vulnerable, and completely harmless. "I am Vera," she whispered, voice melodic despite her obvious exhaustion. "Thank you for saving me." "Captain Nora Hayes, Frontier Defense Force. You're aboard Research Station Helios 7. What were you doing out there alone?" Vera's silver eyes darted between them. "I was conducting atmospheric research. My ship's shielding failed during the storm. I thought I would die." It was a reasonable explanation. The Ascendants were known for their scientific pursuits. Still, something nagged at Nora's instincts. The woman's ship showed signs of weapons fire, not just storm damage. "You're safe now," she said carefully. "But we're under communication blackout until the storm passes. Standard quarantine protocols apply." Vera nodded weakly. "Of course, I understand." She seemed to drift off again, leaving Nora to study her with growing unease. "Keep her under observation," she murmured to Jun, full biometric scanning. "I want to know the moment anything changes." As they left medical, Marcus fell into step beside her. "You think she's lying?" "I think nothing happens by coincidence this far out," Nora replied. "And I think our mysterious guest arrived just as our communications went dark, set up additional security protocols on all critical systems." "You got it, Captain," Marcus hesitated. "What about Dr. Park's research?" Nora's jaw tightened. "Especially that. Whatever's in those labs, it stays locked down until I say otherwise." Back in her quarters, Nora pulled up everything they had on the Ascendants. Their species was ancient, advanced, and notoriously secretive. This was the first time one had been seen in this sector in decades. The coincidence was too perfect, too precisely timed. The station groaned around her as another wave of solar radiation hit. In medical, their mysterious guest slept, or pretended to sleep, while instruments recorded her every breath. And somewhere in the sealed labs below, classified research continued, its true nature known only to Jun Park and his superiors back on Earth. Nora had always trusted her instincts. Right now, they were screaming that Vera's arrival was just the beginning. The real storm hadn't even started yet. The next 12 hours passed in tense silence aboard Helios 7. The solar storm continued its assault, bathing the station in waves of crimson energy that made the hull creak and groan. Nora hadn't slept, instead splitting her time between the command center and making irregular patrols through the station's corridors. Something about their guest's story wasn't adding up. Nora had reviewed the sensor logs 3 times now. The damage patterns on Vera's ship weren't consistent with solar radiation. The burns looked more like impact points from military-grade plasma weapons. "Captain," Marcus's voice crackled through her comm. "You need to see this." Nora found him in the security center, surrounded by holographic displays. He'd been analyzing the data recovered from Vera's ship's computer core. "What did you find?" "The navigation logs." Marcus highlighted a series of coordinates. "She didn't come from the research sector she claimed. Her last plotted course originated from the Darkreach system." Nora's blood ran cold. Darkreach was a restricted zone, quarantined after an incident that the military still classified at the highest levels. "Are you sure?" "Positive, and there's more." He pulled up another display. "The ship's quantum signature, it's military grade. This isn't some researcher's vessel, it's a stealth scout craft." Before Nora could respond, the station's lights flickered. A moment later, Dr. Park's voice came through the comm, tight with urgency. "Captain, our guest is gone." Nora was already moving. "What do you mean, gone?" "She requested to use the washroom. When I checked 5 minutes later, she had vanished. The medical bay's security systems were looped. We didn't even see her leave." "Lock down all critical areas," Nora ordered, drawing her sidearm. "Marcus, get to the lab level. Whatever she's after, I bet it's in Park's research sector." The emergency lights cast everything in a bloody glow as Nora sprinted through the corridors. She'd known something was wrong, had felt it in her gut, but she'd still allowed this to happen. Whatever Vera was, she wasn't some helpless scientist caught in a storm. A crash echoed from somewhere below, followed by the distinctive whine of energy weapons. Nora changed direction, heading for the source of the sound. The research level's security doors had been melted through with some kind of advanced cutting tool. Beyond them, she found Marcus unconscious, a nasty burn mark on his chest armor. His pulse was steady, stunned, not killed. That was something, at least, but why leave him alive? "Jun," she called into her comm. "Status of the containment labs." Static answered her. Swearing, Nora pushed deeper into the research sector. The air grew noticeably colder as she approached the high-security labs. Another set of doors hung open, their locking mechanisms destroyed with surgical precision. She found Jun inside, slumped against a console. Like Marcus, he was alive but unconscious. But it was what she saw beyond him that made her breath catch. The lab's central containment unit had been breached. Inside, where Jun's mysterious research project should have been, there was nothing but empty space and swirling frost. "Looking for this?" Vera's melodic voice came from behind her. Nora turned slowly. The Ascendant stood in the doorway, holding what looked like a crystalline sphere the size of a grapefruit. It pulsed with an inner light that cast strange shadows across her lavender features. Gone was any pretense of weakness or vulnerability. She stood with the confident poise of a trained operative. "What is it?" Nora asked, weapon trained on Vera's chest. "Something that should never have been in human hands." Vera's mercury eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "Your species is not ready for this power. You barely understand what you've created." "And the Ascendants do." A cold smile touched Vera's lips. "We've spent millennia preparing for it. She held up the sphere. "This is just the beginning, a key to unlock something far greater, something that could reshape reality itself." If you're so advanced, why steal it? Nora took a careful step forward. Why not just ask for it? Because your military would never give up such a weapon willingly. They don't even realize what they have. Park's research scratched the surface, but we've seen the full potential. Vera's expression hardened. I cannot allow it to remain here. And I can't let you take it. Nora's finger tightened on the trigger. You don't have a choice, Captain. Vera's free hand moved to a device on her belt. But I'm not the monster you think I am. That's why your crew is still alive. Sometimes the most dangerous intentions come wrapped in mercy. The sphere pulsed brighter, and reality seemed to bend around it. Nora fired, but the energy blast curved away from Vera like light bending around a black hole. The Ascendant's form began to shimmer and fade. The storm will pass in 3 hours, Vera's voice echoed as she disappeared. Your crew will wake soon after. Remember my mercy, Captain Hayes. There are others who wouldn't have shown any at all. Then she was gone, taking the mysterious sphere with her. Nora stood alone in the frozen lab, surrounded by unconscious colleagues and the haunting certainty that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than their small research station. The storm still raged outside, but she knew now that the real tempest was just beginning to gather force. Whatever that sphere was, whoever Vera really worked for, Nora had a feeling they'd all be seeing each other again soon. And next time, mercy might not be part of the equation. 3 days after Vera's disappearance, Nora sat in her office, staring at the classified files Dr. Park had finally agreed to share. The deeper she dug, the more disturbing the implications became. The sphere hadn't just been a research project, it was something they'd found, buried in the ice of a dead world 20 light-years from Earth. It's called the Nexus Core, Jun explained, his face haggard from lack of sleep. We thought it was just an advanced energy source at first, but it's more than that. It's alive in a way. Marcus, now recovered from his encounter with Vera, leaned forward. Alive how? It responds to consciousness, thought patterns. The more we studied it, the more it seemed to study us back. Jun pulled up a series of readings on his tablet. But that's not the strangest part. The energy signatures it produces, they match patterns we've detected from the Darkreach system. Where Vera came from, Nora murmured. What happened there, Jun? What's so classified about that system? The scientist hesitated, then entered a series of commands into his tablet. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a star system with 3 planets. One of them was surrounded by a strange, shimmering field. 6 years ago, a research team discovered similar artifacts there. They attempted to activate one. Jun's voice grew quiet. The entire planet phased out of our reality for 72 hours. When it returned, everyone on the surface was changed, transformed into something else. We had to quarantine the whole system. Nora felt a chill run down her spine. Changed how? Their consciousness had been altered, expanded. They could perceive and manipulate multiple realities simultaneously. But the human mind wasn't meant to process that kind of awareness. It drove them mad. Jun switched off the display. That's why we were studying the Nexus Core here in isolation. We thought we could learn to control it, to harness its power safely. And now Vera has it, Marcus growled. An Ascendant operative with a reality-warping artifact. Perfect. A warning klaxon suddenly blared through the station. Marcus rushed to the nearest console. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Signatures match. Captain their Ascendant vessels, 5 of them. Battle stations, Nora ordered, already moving toward the command center. Jun, lock down your research. Marcus, get our weapons online. But when they reached the bridge, they found something unexpected. The Ascendant ships weren't attacking. They were running. Energy signatures behind them, Marcus reported. Something big is coming through. Oh, hell. A massive vessel emerged from hyperspace, its hull black as deep space and covered in weapons arrays. It wasn't Ascendant design. It wasn't human either. The Shadoth, Jun whispered, face pale. They're supposed to be a myth. Myths don't usually carry that many guns, Nora replied grimly. Open a channel to the Ascendant ships. The view screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Vera looked different now. Her formal military uniform bore insignia Nora didn't recognize, and her expression was tight with worry. "Captain Hayes," she said quickly, "you need to evacuate your station immediately. The Shadoth tracked us here. They want the Nexus core." "The core you stole from us?" Nora shot back. "To protect you from exactly this?" Vera's silver eyes flashed. "The Shadoth have been hunting these artifacts for millennia. They believe they're the key to ascending beyond physical form. They'll destroy your station to get even a hint of where it is." As if to emphasize her point, the massive ship opened fire. Not on the station, but on one of the fleeing Ascendant vessels. It disappeared in a flash of light that seemed to tear a hole in space itself. "Those aren't normal weapons," Marcus reported, scanning the energy readings. "They're using some kind of reality distortion technology." Nora made a quick decision. "Jun, start evacuation procedures. Marcus, power up the emergency shuttles." She turned back to Vera. "Why come back? Why warn us?" "Because I meant what I said about mercy." Vera's image flickered as another blast rocked space. "And because we need your help. The Nexus core isn't just a weapon, it's part of a key. A key the Shadoth cannot be allowed to complete." "And why should we trust you now?" "Because, Captain Hayes, if you don't, there won't be a reality left for any of us to fight over." Vera glanced at something off-screen. "Make your choice quickly. The Shadoth are powering up their main weapon. You have perhaps 5 minutes before they reduce your station to quantum particles." Nora looked at her crew, Marcus with his unwavering loyalty, Jun with his burden of dangerous knowledge. Then she looked at the massive black ship bearing down on them, its weapons promising a death beyond mere physical destruction. Sometimes, she realized, the most dangerous course of action was to take no action at all. And sometimes the only way forward was to trust someone who had already betrayed you. "Tell us what you need," she said to Vera, hoping she wasn't making a mistake that would doom them all. The Ascendant's relief was visible even through the static of the failing communication system. "Prepare for emergency docking. And Captain, bring Park's research data, all of it. We're going to need everything we know about the core." Outside, space itself seemed to twist as the Shadoth vessel charged its main weapon. Time was running out, and Nora had just gambled their lives on the word of someone who had already proven herself a skilled deceiver. But as she moved to prepare for evacuation, she couldn't shake the feeling that Vera's deception had been the lesser evil. What waited for them in the void between realities was far worse than any lie. The evacuation of Helios 7 happened in a blur of organized chaos. Nora watched through the viewscreen of Vera's command ship as their research station crumpled like paper, twisted by the Shadoth's reality-distorting weapons. 6 years of research, secrets, and carefully guarded mysteries, gone in an instant. "The data core?" Vera asked, her silver eyes fixed on the display. "Safe," Jun confirmed, clutching his tablet. "Everything we learned about the Nexus core, including the original discovery logs." They stood on the bridge of the Ascendant vessel Swift Dawn, surrounded by a crew that regarded the humans with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Marcus hadn't left Nora's side, his hand never far from his weapon despite being severely outgunned. "The Shadoth will follow," Vera's second-in-command, a tall Ascendant named Chiron, warned. "They can track the quantum resonance of anyone who's been exposed to Nexus energy." "Then we better have a plan," Nora said, turning to Vera. "You said the core was part of a key. Explain." Vera gestured, and a holographic map filled the center of the bridge. "There are 5 Nexus cores scattered across this sector of space. Each one resonates with the others, creating a network of, let's call them reality anchors. The Shadoth believe that if they can gather all 5, they can use them to transcend physical existence entirely." "And that's bad because," Marcus asked. "Because the process would shred the barrier between realities," Jun interrupted, understanding dawning on his face. "The Darkreach incident, that was just a taste of what could happen if they activate all 5 cores simultaneously. Every consciousness in this sector of space would be forcibly elevated," Vera confirmed grimly. "Those who survived would be transformed like your Darkreach researchers, those who didn't." A violent shudder ran through the ship. Alarms blared. Shadoth vessels emerging from hyperspace, Chiron reported. 3 ships bearing down fast. They're hunting us through quantum space itself, Vera muttered. We need to reach the sanctuary. What sanctuary? Nora demanded. Instead of answering, Vera placed her hand on a crystalline control panel. The ship's engines hummed to life, but the sound was different, deeper, resonating at a frequency that made Nora's teeth ache. The Nexus core you had wasn't the first one we recovered, Vera explained as space began to distort around them. We found another years ago. We learned to harness its power in small ways, like this. Reality rippled. Through the view screen, Nora watched as normal space folded away like origami, revealing something underneath, a dimension that existed between the layers of conventional reality. Here, energy flowed like liquid light, and the laws of physics seemed more like polite suggestions. The swift dawn slipped between the folds of space-time, leaving the pursuing Shadoth ships behind. But Nora could feel them out there, hunting, following the quantum trail like sharks scenting blood in the water. "Welcome to the Veil," Vera said quietly. "The space between spaces. We can hide here for a time, plan our next move." "Which is what exactly?" Marcus asked, his dark skin ashen from the transition. "We find the remaining cores before the Shadoth do." Vera pulled up another hologram showing 3 pulsing points of light. "We know where they are, we just haven't been able to reach them alone. That's why we need you." "Because humans are expendable," Nora's voice was sharp. "Because humans think differently than we do." Vera's silver eyes met Nora's. "Your species has a remarkable talent for finding solutions where we see only problems, and because you've already proven you can work with Nexus technology without losing yourselves to it." Jun stepped forward, his tablet displaying complex equations. "The resonance patterns, they're similar to human brainwave frequencies. That's why we were able to study the core without the negative effects the Ascendants experienced." "Precisely," Vera nodded. "Your minds are adaptable in ways ours are not. We need that adaptability now." Another tremor ran through the ship. In the strange space of the veil, it felt like reality itself shuddering. "They're getting closer," Chiron warned. "The veil won't hide us forever." Nora looked at her small crew, Marcus with his unwavering loyalty, Jun with his dangerous knowledge. Then she looked at Vera, the Ascendant who had first betrayed them and then saved them. In the shifting light of the veil, it was hard to tell friend from foe, truth from deception. But one truth was clear. If they didn't act, the Shadoth would reshape all of reality in their image. Everything and everyone they knew would be transformed or destroyed. "Show us the closest core location," Nora said finally. "If we're going to save reality, we better start somewhere." Vera's relief was visible, but so was her worry. "The nearest core is on a dead world called Meridian, but reaching it, that will be the easy part." "And the hard part?" "The hard part," Vera said, bringing up an image of a planet shrouded in swirling darkness, "will be surviving what guards it." In the shifting currents of the veil, the swift dawn carried its unlikely crew toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just one reality, but all of them. And somewhere out there, the Shadoth followed, drawn by the quantum resonance of souls who had touched the power of the Nexus cores. The hunt was just beginning. The dead world of Meridian hung before them like a black pearl wrapped in storms. From the bridge of the swift dawn, Nora watched lightning dance across its atmosphere, each flash illuminating shapes that shouldn't exist in normal space. "The core's influence has warped this entire planet," Jun explained, studying his readings. "Reality is, thin here, malleable." "Like the Darkreach incident," Marcus added grimly, "but worse." Vera stood at the helm, her lavender skin reflecting the ethereal light of the veil. "The Shadoth will find us the moment we leave the veil's protection. We'll have minutes at most to reach the surface and locate the core." "And what's guarding it?" Nora asked, remembering Vera's warning. "We call them the Twisted." Chiron brought up a holographic image that made everyone step back. The creature shown looked like it had been assembled from pieces of a dozen different realities, its form constantly shifting between states of matter. former inhabitants of Meridian, transformed by prolonged exposure to the core's energy. Wonderful, Marcus muttered. Reality-warped monsters guarding a reality-warping artifact. Any other good news? The ship shuddered as another quantum tremor passed through the veil. The Shadowth were getting closer, their massive ships tearing through the fabric of space-time itself to reach them. We need a plan, Nora said, studying the planetary scans. Something they won't expect. Vera's silver eyes met hers. I have one, but you won't like it. She was right. Nora didn't like it at all. But standing in the Swift Dawn's cargo bay 20 minutes later, watching Jun calibrate the stolen Nexus core, she had to admit it was their best shot. The resonance frequencies are aligned, Jun reported. If this works, the core's energy should temporarily synchronize with our neural patterns, giving us a measure of control over local reality. And if it doesn't work, Marcus asked, checking his modified weapon. Then our consciousness scatters across multiple dimensions and we go as mad as the Twisted. Jun's attempt at a reassuring smile failed spectacularly. But the calculations are solid, probably. Nora turned to Vera, who was inputting final coordinates. Your people tried this before, didn't they? That's why you needed humans. Yes, Vera's voice was soft. The Ascendant mind is too rigid. We can't adapt to the core's influence like humans can. We either resist completely or lose ourselves entirely. But you're coming with us anyway. Someone has to pilot the ship. Vera's smile was bitter. And someone has to make sure the Shadowth don't claim both cores if we fail. The final preparations passed in tense silence. Their plan was simple, in the way that incredibly dangerous and probably suicidal plans often are. Use the stolen core to shield their minds, drop out of the veil directly above the second core's location, fight through whatever horrors awaited them, and somehow do it all before the Shadowth reduced the planet to quantum particles. Ready? Vera asked, hand hovering over the controls. Nora looked at her small team, Marcus with his steady hands and unwavering loyalty, Jun clutching his tablet like a shield, protecting the knowledge that could save or doom them all. Then she looked at Vera, the Ascendant who had become something more than an ally in their desperate flight through the stars. Ready, she confirmed. Take us in. Reality shuddered as the Swift Dawn emerged from the veil. Meridian's storm-racked atmosphere buffeted the ship as they plunged toward the surface. Behind them, space itself tore open as 3 Shadowth vessels emerged from quantum space. Energy weapons charging, Chiron shouted. Impact in. The first blast caught them just as they entered the atmosphere. Reality distorted around the ship, but the core's protective field held. Barely. They landed hard on a plateau of black stone, lightning crackling overhead in impossible patterns. The air itself felt wrong, thick with potential energy and the whispers of other dimensions. Move, Nora ordered, leading her team down the ramp. Jun, readings. The core's signature is strong, he reported as they ran. 200 meters north, deep underground, some kind of ancient structure. A scream that existed in multiple frequencies at once cut through the air. From the shadows of twisted rock formations, things that had once been Meridian's inhabitants emerged. Their forms flickered between states, solid, liquid, gas, and things that had no name in human physics. Marcus opened fire, his modified weapon shooting bursts of quantum-aligned energy. The blasts passed through normal space, and whatever space the Twisted inhabited, disrupting their forms temporarily. There, Jun pointed to a half-buried structure ahead, its architecture an impossible merger of angles that hurt the eye to look at. The core's inside. They fought their way forward as reality buckled around them. The stolen core pulsed in Jun's pack, its energy keeping their minds anchored as the world tried to unravel them. Above, the Shadowth ships began bombardment, their reality-warping weapons tearing holes in the fabric of space-time. The entrance to the structure was a portal that seemed to open into several places at once. Nora forced herself not to think about it, pushed through, and emerged into a chamber that existed in multiple phases of time simultaneously. In the center, floating in a column of light that bent in ways light shouldn't, was the second Nexus core. Jun, start the extraction sequence, Nora ordered. Marcus, watch our backs, Vera. Company, Vera interrupted, raising her weapon. Through the impossible portal stepped 3 Shaddoth warriors. Their bodies were covered in technology that seemed to defy physics, and their eyes glowed with the light of other dimensions. The cores will be ours, one spoke, its voice resonating across multiple frequencies. Transcendence cannot be stopped. Watch us, Nora replied and opened fire. The battle that followed would have been impossible to describe in normal space. Reality shifted and flowed like water as human, ascendant, and Shaddoth fought for control of the core. Jun worked frantically at the extraction controls while Marcus and Nora held the line. Vera moved with impossible grace, her knowledge of quantum combat keeping them alive as reality itself became a weapon. Then Jun shouted in triumph. The second core pulsed once, twice, and lifted free of its ancient housing. The chamber began to collapse as its anchor to reality was removed. The Shaddoth warriors pressed forward, their weapons tearing holes in space itself. Run, Nora ordered, laying down covering fire. Back to the ship. They fled through twisting corridors that rearranged themselves with each step. Behind them, the Shaddoth pursued, but ahead the swift dawn waited, its engines hot, Chiron at the controls. They reached the ship just as the Shaddoth vessels began their final approach. Reality was coming apart at the seams, the planet itself starting to phase between dimensions. Vera, get us out of here, Nora shouted as they stumbled onto the bridge. Hold on to something, Vera replied, her hands dancing across the controls. This is going to be interesting. The swift dawn lifted off as space itself began to tear. The 2 cores pulsed in synchronization, their combined power creating a bubble of stable reality around the ship. Behind them, Meridian began to break apart, not just physically but dimensionally, scattered across multiple planes of existence. They hit the veil running, reality folding around them like origami as Vera pushed the ship beyond its limits. The Shaddoth followed, their massive ships burning through quantum space. Until Jun did something with the cores, something that made reality hiccup. When it resumed, the Shaddoth ships were gone, banished to some other dimension or time or possibility. In the strange space of the veil, surrounded by flowing energy and the remnants of other realities, Nora finally allowed herself to breathe. They had 2 cores now, 2 pieces of the key that could unmake or remake all of existence. We won't be able to hide for long, Vera said quietly. The Shaddoth will find another way back, they always do. Then we better find the other cores first, Nora replied. She looked at her unlikely crew, human, ascendant, all of them now bound together by something greater than their differences. Where to next? Vera smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the impossible light of the veil. That depends, Captain Hayes. How do you feel about impossible missions? After what we just survived, Nora laughed. Impossible is starting to feel like just another Tuesday. The swift dawn sailed on through the space between spaces, carrying its crew of reality's last defenders toward whatever waited in the quantum dark. They had won this battle, but the war for existence itself was just beginning. And somewhere out there, in dimensions unknown, the Shaddoth were regrouping, gathering their forces for the next confrontation. The hunt would continue, reality itself hanging in the balance. But for now, in this moment between moments, they had hope. Sometimes, Nora reflected, that was the most powerful reality of all.